Hello students, my name is Moon and this is He102 Lecture 3 Nutrition, Weight and Management. The very first lecture, number 1, was Introduction and Welcome. Lecture 2 was Basic Sciences, which lays the foundation of understanding so that you are better able to understand the science behind the research that underlies the rest of the semester. And so this is really the first detailed dive into our health, behavior, and society. The first word health means that when you registered for this course, there's a good chance that your first thought about health was, how do I lose weight? Or in other words, how do I manage my weight? A few of you will have the opposite question, how do I gain weight because you're underweight, or your doctor told you, or looking in the mirror you decided you could gain a few pounds. So let's get that out of the way with this lecture, Nutrition and Weight Management. Okay, standard disclaimer, all this information is for education purposes only. It's not meant to be any specific medical advice. If you do have an actual question about your medical situation, you really need to ask your primary care provider. Especially when I mention a few fad diets, new diets that are making its rounds on the internet, then especially that you need to talk to your doctor first. Your doctor probably did not get a class on nutrition per se in medical school. Well, maybe nowadays they do, but a long time ago they didn't. So it's not that your doctor would be an expert on whatever fad diet you run into, but the job of your doctor is to understand your medical situation. So after you explain the diet and you want to try, and the doctor searches on it on the internet, and the doctor knows what to look for that are relevant to your medical situation. So talk to your doctor first. Another thing I want to emphasize is that all of the lectures, all of the topics in this semester is directed towards the average person of average health. Some of you are in great shape, some of you are way below average shape, and for both ends of the bell curve of human existence, I would direct you again to a specialist. If you are already above average physical health, above average physical condition, you're already an above average athlete, then these lectures are probably not what you were hoping for. But you really should be consulting like a specialist coach or trainer in order to get you to the next level up. And people who are in a really serious situation with their medical condition, then you should again consult your doctor before you try any of these things you hear this semester. Some recurring themes in this entire semester, lecture after lecture, will be mentioned here, and its first one is don't try to be perfect all the time, because if we're talking about weight management, and especially if we're talking about losing weight or getting in shape, which is next week's lecture, there's an issue now, and if this was in real life class, I took this time to ask, how many of you signed up for a gym? And I'm raising my hand right now. In the past, not just the gym I'm a member of now, but the gyms I've joined in the past. All right? And now, how many of you signed up for a gym, paid your monthly fees, and never went? Aha. So, and then a couple of you honest folk out there will raise your hand, and I will raise my hand too. So that's happened to me. I in a fit or surge of enthusiasm and motivation, sign up for a gym, sign up for a 1-year contract, and then never go. Another way to look at it is how many of you decide to start on a new diet, and it goes great for like a week or two, maybe even a month, but then gradually over time it sort of falls by the wayside, and next thing you know, you're back to being your old self again. And it's not just diet this time, it's anything, any kind of habit, any kind of mild addiction even, that you wanted to change in your life, and you say, that's it, I am going to be the new me starting tomorrow. And then tomorrow never comes. Part of the problem of going back, failing in behavior change, is that many people try to achieve too much too soon. And what happens is that eventually their mind rebels. Because how do we get into this situation in the first place? When we know we're not supposed to eat that candy bar, we know we're supposed to go out and exercise, but when we're sitting at the desk enjoying whatever's on the computer screen and snacking away, then it feels good. It definitely feels good, especially compared to the concept or the anticipation of getting up and out and going out and exercising or putting that snack bar away. So it's much better, easier, more fun, more satisfying to eat too much and exercise too little. And then suddenly you decide, tomorrow all of that will stop, I will be the perfect person. And that's just not going to happen. Maybe your surge of motivation will take you for a little short amount of time, but eventually you will remember those good days, the happy days when you didn't used to do any of this, and your mind will eventually rebel and your psychology will rebel, and you will start making excuses and these excuses will start to sound better and better, and then finally one day you'll give in, and then the next thing you know, you're back to square one. So do not try to be perfect, and do not try to stick to whatever plan you came up with all the time, because you will fail. You are a human being. You're not a robot. You will fail. So what is the sustainable way for behavior change is to start slow and grow slow. And when you have some I wouldn't say stumbles, but maybe a couple of back steps, then it's okay. Do not hate yourself, do not beat up on yourself, and definitely do not get so discouraged that you give up in your behavior change. Just accept it as just a back step, that's all. Real life is about 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. So those 2 steps back, it's not the best thing to do, but it's going to happen, and so accept it. Accept that you are a fallible human being, but also accept that you do want to do something about yourself to improve your situation. So accept the back steps and and gather yourself up and brace yourself, and then push forward the next time. So start slow, grow slow. Start slow is especially important, especially in physical fitness next week lecture, because if you try to do too much too soon, you're going to break something. And then if not ending up in the emergency room or the doctor's clinic, you could like pull a muscle or something, and now you can't exercise for like a week, several days to a week. So don't try to do too much too soon. How do you know you're doing too much too soon? Well, we'll talk about that next week. All right. As you do your own research, and I'm saying that in air quotes, doing your own research out there on the internet, then you'll get into one article after another saying, don't eat this, don't do that, don't be like this, you got, discipline, and don't stop doing whatever you're doing. And part of your mind will mutter to yourself, why is everything I like bad for me? It's pretty simple, actually. When you like to do something, then you do more of it, and the more you do, eventually you cross a line and you end up doing too much, and then finally somebody out there says maybe you should do less. And you say, why? I like to do it. I like to eat it. I like to play it or whatever. And then the answer is because you're doing too much and you need to cut down. And if you keep on this track, it's going to cause health problems, either physical health problems or mental health problems or social health problems. So that's why it's bad for you. The thing itself, the nature of the thing itself is not bad for you. Sugar is not bad for you. Salt is not bad for you. Most fats are not bad for you. But the problem is in our society, we eat too much of it. Resting is not bad for you. A computer game is not bad for you. But in our society, we do too much. Now, there are some things we really should cut out of our lives completely, like illegal drugs, other truly evil things. But again, do not try to, if you are in a full addiction, then do not try to eliminate that tomorrow. It's not going to happen. Your mind is not built that way. We'll talk about addictions in lecture 6. So instead, start slow, grow slow. If you are addicted to eating 4 chocolate cakes a day, then do not go to 0 tomorrow. You will rebel, you will fail, you will get frustrated, you will get you will give up. And then in, I don't know, in some kind of like spite, out of spite or out of perceived scarcity, there'll be a phase where you even ramp it up to 5 chocolate cakes a day because it's like your body or part of your subconscious mind is telling you, oh my God, that short span of diet you attempted, that was horrible. Let's never do that again. In fact, let's make sure we never feel that way again, and let's eat more than before, more than we're used to. So instead of going from 4 chocolate cakes a day to 0, like, okay, tomorrow, how about just 3 chocolate cakes a day? And then maybe by the end of the month, make it down to 2.5 chocolate cakes a day. And then by the end of the year, 365 days later, you're down to 2 chocolate cakes a day. Just take it slow. Take it slow. So that is why everything you like is bad for you, because in our society, in our economy, especially when it comes to nutrition, the things that we like to eat are plentiful, are available on the cheap. With $20, you walk into a gas station, you can, and then you only have $20, inflation, right? You only have $20 and you could eat something. You can get a salad, a prepackaged salad, you can get yogurt, you can get a low calorie drink, but those don't taste as well. They don't taste good compared to something that's high in sugar, salt, and fat. So since these taste better, without thinking about it, you go and buy that instead. So that's why we eat too much of it. And then we eat so much that it causes health problems. And then articles and research is showing that it's bad for you. Again, these individual items are not bad for you by nature. It's just that it's our eating too much of it is bad for us. Similarly, the things we don't like vegetables, fresh fruits, things like that. Now, I know many of you enjoy a fresh fruit, but they are kind of expensive compared to a candy bar. Like, what is an apple now? Like $1.50 each. So for $1, you can get a candy bar. So candy bars, junk food is cheaper and tastes better and makes you feel better when you're not thinking about it. So we eat less fresh fruits and vegetables. They're also a bit of a bother to get. That you don't see fresh fruits and vegetables in the vending machine. You have to go all the way to the grocery store, carry it all the way home, stock it in the fridge, and then remember to bring it with you to work. So there is an extra workload there. Instead of like at work, you can just go to the vending machine, pay whatever I've noticed that the prices of the vending machine are still ramping up. They're still marching upward with inflation. So anyway, when things we don't like to eat as much as these, we eat less of than these, and then we eat so little that we don't eat enough. And then there are articles and research reports and advisors telling us to eat more. And our minds, our child minds, our animal brains are saying, but I don't want to. I'd rather eat a candy bar. And so you end up eating less. And then many people in America, even though they're actually financially well off and have cushy jobs, they actually suffer from some malnutrition. So I said that none of these things are by nature, intrinsically by nature, bad for you, except for some extreme things like cyanide. Okay, cyanide is 100% natural. It's bad for you. Please don't ever take it. Similarly, some of these illegal drugs, powerful drugs, are bad for you. Please never have any. And there is actually, the current alcohol recommendation is 0. The current alcohol recommendation is 0. Now, there were old recommendations like decades ago that says maybe like a couple drinks a day is okay. That's old stuff. The reality is that when you put alcohol in your body, you're really not doing anything good for yourself. So does that mean that everybody should go to 0 alcohol tomorrow? No, that's impossible, and of course you cannot legislate it. Remember the last time the government tried to outlaw alcohol? So no, do not reduce your alcohol intake to 0 tomorrow, because again, your mind will rebel, your psychology will rebel, your body will rebel, and then you will get frustrated and fail and quit. But start reducing it. So how many drinks you're used to per day, start reducing it a little at a time. It's going to take years. Many of these habits took a lifetime to build up. It's going to take a lifetime to finally change to something else. So most things on this list, however, that's talked about today are not intrinsically bad for you. It's just that we eat too much of it, and that's the problem. Why is this food why are some foods or some ingredients so irresistible? Why does it taste so good? And what happens is, a long time ago, we were hunter-gatherers. Actually, previous slide. We were hunter-gatherers, meaning that we were actually scavenger omnivores. Scavenger? No way, man. I ain't eating that roadkill. When you're hungry enough, you will eat it. You just haven't been hungry enough. So when we were hunter-gatherers, we didn't even invent the concept of a house yet. We were living in caves or under trees, and we scavenged. Most of our nutritional intake was scavenge, which is we find plants on the ground. Some of them turned out to be edible, and it's not like corn or wheat. Okay, corn and wheat are aliens to this earth. They are genetic abominations of the grass seed plants that they came from. Go ahead and search on your favorite internet search for like original corn or original wheat, and they will look, to a non-botanist like myself, they look indistinguishable from ordinary grass, wild weeds. So that is what ancient humans used to put in their mouths. And now meat, animal meat, well, there were insects, grubs, so they couldn't defend themselves from a hungry human. But what about like big prey animals, like herbivores, like antelope, the proto-animal to the cow? Cows also are genetic abominations. They cannot survive on their own in the wild, modern cows. Anyway, or other animals that could fight back, then no, those were not an option. Instead, before humans were able to organize well enough to form hunting parties and invent the spear, humans instead, their only source of animal protein were insects, slow lizards, slow tiny lizards, and the remains of large animals that other predators had already scraped clean. And there were like scraps of meat left on the bones that the original predator decided it wasn't worth eating and left. So it was already a little bit rotten. But when you're hungry enough, you don't care. And so humans, this was before they invented fire. Humans came up and became like the largest scavenger in the neighborhood. So they scared away the other scavengers and then picked at what was left on the bones. This means that those humans learned to cherish every tiny microgram of protein, of fat, of carbohydrate, of salt. Plants were plants that were mostly fiber and fiber and some nutrients like micronutrients. They were all over the place. So it was okay to eat as many. I mean, you could eat as much as you wanted of fibers, plants, but sugar, salt, especially salt, and fats and carbohydrates were very, very rare. So what happened to those people who really, really liked it and would fight and compete more than anybody else to grab whatever little bits of sugar, salt, fat, and carbohydrates that they could? Well, they had the higher chance of growing to adulthood, beating off their neighbors, their competitors, and then they had the better chance of being parents and having offspring. So the DNA, whatever parts of the DNA that coded for this kind of behavior, to cherish, to love sugar, salts, and fats, were rewarded in every succeeding generation, and that's what we're dealing with today. Your DNA is hardwired to cherish, love sugar, salts, and fats, and not really appreciate the fiber and the micronutrients like vitamins and minerals. They're kind of hard to notice when you're eating. So that's another thing. Sometimes we don't feel the craving for these micronutrients. What are macros? We'll talk about it in a few slides. So anyway, and you may say, oh, come on, that was like hundreds of thousands of years ago. We're modern humans today. We're beyond that. Well, our society is beyond that. Our technology is beyond that. But our DNA hasn't changed that much in 100,000 years. Our DNA is still human, and our DNA is hard-coded, hardwired to crave every little thing of these sugar, salts, and fats. And the corporations know it. The food corporations know it. So, and they're competing with each other to sell more packaged goods. What do? How do they make customers buy more of their product than their competitors' product? They load it with sugar, salt, and fat. And then they add other things like crunch and spices, but that changes with the fashions. But the original base of sugar, salt, and fat, that's always true. That's what they maximize. After all, if billions of dollars of profits are at stake, why not spend a few millions of dollars buying the best psychologists money can buy, the best nutritionists and dietitians, the best chemists, the best of everything food related money can buy, to set up labs to find out how can we make our foods the most irresistible, so that our customers, even though our customers feel self-conscious about losing weight and spending money, and every time you buy a bag of chips it looks like you're buying a bag of air. There's like so little product actually in the bag. So how do you offset the resistance of the customer who's trying to eat healthier and save money? You make the food so irresistible that the customers cannot help themselves and they come running back to buy another bag. This is what it's all about, to buy another bag. It's like the parable of Pavlov's dog. Pavlov's dog is a famous science experiment many years ago where a doctor took his dog, and every time he showed food to the dog he rang a bell, and then every time the dog saw food the dog salivated because the dog wanted to eat the food, and then associated the sound of the bell with the food. And then one day the researcher did not show any food but rang the bell, and the dog salivated because he associated. So that is that the food corporations are treating you like dogs. And I'm here to tell you that you are not a dog. You are not. This is called operant conditioning, and you are more than just a bell and a salivary gland. You are a human being. You have the front half of your brain that does complex abstract thinking, and one of the purposes of this semester is to disconnect that bell from that behavior. Your corporations are ringing the bell, pulling the strings on you like a puppet, and expecting you to take out your wallet, show your credit card or your money and buy their product because they can play you like a puppet. And I'm telling you, you're not a dog, you're not a puppet. You can change that trigger to something else. And I will revisit this topic again and again. Now, why should you? Why should you eat less, exercise more? Because obesity is a massive problem in the United States. Go ahead, search on the internet for obesity. How about obesity maps? Let's do that. Let's search for obesity maps, and see what comes up. And you see these trends of obesity in this country, other countries. Then you can look at obesity graph, and then you can see this trend of obesity in the United States and other countries. And so what is it about obesity that's so bad? Am I fat shaming? How dare I fat shame my students? I'm not fat shaming. I'm not saying obesity makes you ugly. I'm saying obesity leads to high blood pressure, and then high blood pressure, constant chronic high blood pressure, is a strain on the heart, and the heart disease is the most common cause of death in the United States. Heart disease is the most common cause of death in the United States. So click on this link, and this graph is the stat is 2022, because that is the earliest data available. It takes that long. We're now in 2025. It takes that many years for totals from all the hospitals, all the clinics, all the death certificates, all the funeral services to start getting collated, totaled, and percolate their way up from local levels to state, to city, to state, to federal, and then reach the Center for Disease Control, who tabulates this data. So it's going to take until 2026 to get the 2023 data. So anyway, 2022, what was happening there? COVID was about to be declared over. The pandemic was about to be declared over. It's not over. COVID is still out there. The pandemic is still out there. But the governments have decided that the economic costs of maintaining the lockdown now far exceeded the benefits. So they declared COVID over. So in 2022, COVID was number 4 In 2021, it was number 3. And so by 2023, I expect that COVID will march its way down this list until it reaches right here. Eventually, it'll be merged into respiratory diseases. COVID will be just another respiratory disease, like influenza, asthma, like that, and then it'll be here. Okay, so that's why we care. That's why you should exercise more and eat less. Not for your appearance, not for your self-esteem. So it's not about fat shaming, it's about health. It's about improving people's health. You may say, I'm hungry. You're trying to stick to your diet, even a sensible diet, a sustainable diet, but your mind is still trying to rebel. It's saying, you're hungry, you're hungry. And my mind does that all the time. And I'm thinking now, but now I'm able to think, that's not possible. I can't be hungry. I just had breakfast. I had breakfast an hour ago, and it was a good breakfast. How could I possibly be hungry? What you're feeling is not hunger, but cravings. This is a psychological thing. You're not feeling physical hunger. You're feeling psychological craving to eat something because you are used to eating that. You are responding to the bell. You are responding to the puppet string. And so when I say that's not possible, I can't be hungry, I just had a good, adequate breakfast, it must be cravings. What I'm taking the first steps for cutting that puppet string. I'm taking the first steps of rewiring the bell switch to do something else, like read a good book, or go do something else that'll occupy my mind, and constantly reminding myself I'm not hungry, it's cravings. My mind is trying to trick me. Malnutrition is often associated with chronic extreme hunger, but it's actually two different things, because it's possible to eat at a fast food restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, and you will never be hungry. You will never be hungry. However, after a couple of months, you will be severely malnourished, as in blood tests will start showing abnormal labs. And then eventually, if you keep this up, your vitamin intake will be so impaired that you'll start showing signs of vitamin deficiency. So malnutrition is the unhealthy amounts of nutrients. And you may say, I can't be malnourished, I'm fat. Malnutrition, the malnutrition means bad. It doesn't mean not enough, it means bad. So if you have too much intake of fats, sugars, salts, then that is also malnutrition too. Here's the word calorie, the dreaded C word. So for the record, the original definition of calorie and the official one is the amount of energy it takes to move 1 cc of water, 1 gram of water, 1 degree Celsius, the temperature Celsius. That is the scientific definition of calorie. But that is a very, very tiny amount of energy, and so most meals we put in our mouths can come into the hundreds of thousands and millions of calories. So if you put these scientific calorie numbers on a nutrition label, that's going to freak out the customer, and it's going to make them not buy the product. So in a collusion between food corporations and the government, they finally got the permission to say a diet calorie is 1,000 science calories. And when they say calorie on a nutrition label in a regular food package, they mean a diet calorie. So how many calories is in a 300 calorie candy bar? Actually, 300,000 science calories the original scientific definition of calorie. But 300,000, and putting an extra 3 zeros and a comma all over the place does use up a lot of ink. So there's that, and it uses up a lot of space. So there's that. So there's a minor practical justification for listing diet calories instead. Nutrition. I said the nutritionist before a dietitian. This is not the class for it, but in case you were wondering, there is a difference between nutritionist and dietitian. Basically, a nutritionist talks to healthy people, a dietitian talks to sick people. A nutritionist can talk to people in general. A dietitian is supposed to consult with an individual patient, requested by the primary care provider to have a look at this patient and talk to them and talk about specific nutrition requirements for their specific medical problem. Remember the bell curve from last week? So review it. I'm not going to explain it again, but I'm going to use this term a lot. So refresh your memory. And if you still have not watched the Basic Science Lecture 2 from last week, as according to my viewer count on YouTube channel shows, I'm supposed to have 225 students in all of my sections, and there's let's check, because last I checked there was nowhere near 225. There was nowhere near 225 views. It's only 109. Less than half of you have watched that video. What's the holdup? What are you waiting for? It's part of the class. Do you want to do well in the class? Watch the video and then do the homework. Okay, so when I say average, I mean right here in the line in the middle of the bell curve. So the average person, a pound of body weight is about 3,500 calories. And I emphasize average because everybody can claim or know somebody who is not here. So everybody can claim, but this number doesn't apply to me, or I know somebody for whom this number is absolutely wrong. And that means that there are people on this side of the curve, there's people on this side of the curve, there are some people all the way in the extreme tail here, or all the way in the extreme tail here. So yes, I'm sure you're correct. I'm sure you're telling the truth. You are, or you know somebody who is like all the way here or all the way there. But this graph represents all of society, all the people in a population. And the question now is, if you don't know where you are because you don't have a prior medical checkup or status check, then where do you think you are? What is the chances? Where are you most likely to be on this curve? I know for a fact that I'm about here. I'm definitely in the middle section. I am an average person. At least physically, I am very, very average. So I am here, and for me, this number works fine for me. And also, by being double zeros, it makes a nice, convenient round number to make calculations easier. What calculations? There will be some calculations later. So to make life easier for you guys, we will just call it 3,500. Everybody's number not only is different from person to person, but even from day to day, because some days you have more energy, some days you have less energy. Some days you are very busy, some days you're not so busy. So your metabolic rate, which is the number of calories you burn per day, per unit of time, will vary greatly. It's already varied by genetics, what work you're doing, where you're hanging out, etc., how much you make. What do you mean how much you make? Because your different income levels will reflect your different diets, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you eat, the work area you hang out, that's all affected by economics. So yes, economics changes the metabolic rate. Oh, and by the way, the day of the week and the temperature of the weather, they all affect metabolic rate. So for now, for the needs of this class, let's just accept that it's on average 3,500, and because it's a convenient number to work with. Some of you were racing to the email system because you wanted to yell at me and say, I heard that calories don't matter. I can completely ignore calories. My advisor, my favorite social media influencer told me that the best way to diet is to completely ignore calories. I already established that a science calorie is the energy to move 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius, and 1 calorie on the nutrition label is 1,000 science calories. That's a calorie. So these are laws of physics, of thermodynamics, and you cannot change the laws of physics. What you can do is modify some of these things. You can modify some of these things, and of course you can modify your activity level, and of course you can focus on what else is on that calorie. Like, would you rather eat 100 calories of a candy bar, or would you rather eat 100 calories from an apple? I'm going to tell you that the 100 calories from an apple comes with a lot of good stuff, good vitamins, fiber. It comes with less salt and less fat than you got from that candy bar. So the quality calorie, a apple contains the calories in an apple are a very higher quality than the calories from a candy bar. So in fact, do not ignore calories. However, do not focus only on calories, because if you go to go out for lunch and everybody else is ordering a salad, and you decide, you know what, I will also eat 500 calories for lunch, but I'm going to take it in 1 milkshake. I'm going to order an ice cream vanilla milkshake, and that's my lunch for the day. And if somebody complains, I'm going to say, hey, it's only 500 calories. Is it? I have no idea. Let's go check it out. How many calories nutrition for a milkshake? I always ignore the AI. Who's this? Oh, that's a nutritional supplement. Are they all nutritional supplements? These are all nutritional supplements, fast food. Okay, so I was in the ballpark, like 500 to 600 calories. Who is this? Always double check your sources. Flickr. So some random person made a picture and uploaded it to Flickr. So there is no guarantee of the accuracy of this information. I'm tempted to. Right. Okay. So depending on what you put in the milkshake, your calorie count may be different, right? So this one is almost 1,000. I'm not here to promote or disparage any specific brand, but we're looking at between 600 to 1,000 depending on what you put into it, which makes sense, right? Depending on what you put into a milkshake will vastly vary the calories in it. But anyway, the fallacy is that if you focus only on calories, then you can somehow justify eating junk food, and instead you want to focus on quality calories. So both lines are true. Do not focus only on calories, and that's what your social media influencer is really saying. They're saying that to those who are focusing only on calories and nothing else, that's wrong. But I'm saying to those who completely ignore calories, that's wrong too. The reality is, the practical reality is in the middle. Of course you should count calories, but then what you want to do is focus on quality calories, quality foods, and don't spend your calorie allowance on junk food, bad foods. So like I use the word allowance, and which is a financial term. So let's take it that way, right? Let's say you are like you're trying to keep under, let's say, I don't know, 3,000 calories a day, and let's say it's like you have $3,000 and you're allowed to spend it any way you want, but you would rather spend it wisely. You don't want to go to the casino and blow $3,000 in an hour, because you have bills to pay, you have gasoline to fill in your car, you have to buy things to repair your clothes, you have to pay for the laundry, and that's where the money is going. So you have to spend your money wisely. And similarly, if you had 3,000 calories per day to spend, don't spend it all on milkshakes and candy bars. You want to spend it on foods that are high in fiber, vitamins, minerals. Get good protein, quality protein, and some fats, because after all, you want food to taste better. So after all of that qualifying, careful pre-explanation, I'm inevitably one or two of you are going to completely misunderstand. So I have to brace myself for like an occasional email or answer on the homework, and then correct those who are not getting it. So I said 3,500 calories is an average pound of body weight to lose. And again, right, if you're depending on yourself, your numbers will be completely different. Anyway, if you want to lose 10 pounds, here's some math now. If you want to lose 10 pounds, how many calories should you remove from the ear, right? Because you're not going to lose 10 pounds in one day. That's impossible nutritionally. So let's say you want to lose 10 pounds in 1 year. How many calories should you eat less of in that year total? Then you add up all the calories you eat for an entire year, 365 days, and then what you do is figure out a way to reduce it by 3,500 times 10. What's that? What's that come out to? Here's my calculator. 3,500 times 10. Can anybody do it in their head? How do you multiply a number by 10? You just move the decimal point over. It's 0.0, right? So you move that decimal point over, and that's multiplying by 10. So 35,000. That's how many calories you need to eat less for that year, for the total year, in order to lose 10 pounds that total year. And never cheat. But you're not a science experiment, you're a human being. This is just hypothetical. All right, so now the bottom of the slide says you don't want to lose 10 pounds in a year, you want to lose 10 pounds in 20 days. Now that means how many calories do you need to reduce your food intake by? Well, what's 35,000 divided by 20 days? 1,750. Which is like half. If we assume that your daily intake was 3,000 calories, that's more than half. So you're eating less than half of what you're used to eating. That's pretty drastic. That's pretty extreme. In fact, there's a good chance that if this is completely voluntary, you will fail. You will give up within like a day or two. So 20 days is not realistic. What's more realistic? 1 month is not realistic. 2 months is not realistic. 60 days, 10 pounds in 60 days, that's extreme. But in that first extra credit assignment, I committed to losing 10 pounds in the semester, end of the semester. So how about divided by 30 days? Divided by 90 days. So 3 months, 90 days. That's reducing my calorie input by 400 calories a day. So 400 calories out of a potential 3,000 for the day, that's doable. That's doable. After all, 400 calories is like 1.5 candy bars. Not that I eat candy bars at this point in the game, but I can easily find 400 calories that I'm eating that I should not be eating, and I can, if I'm serious about this, I can reduce it. I can switch it out with fresh fruits and vegetables, and then spread it out so that I can reduce my daily intake. Or what about this? How about I reduce my daily intake by 300 calories and then go to the gym and exercise 100 calories. How about that? Now you may be thinking, oh, well then why don't I just go to the gym and exercise 400 calories a day? Why? And then I can still eat the way I usually do. The problem with using the gym, only the gym, as a diet strategy is that you cannot lose that much weight in the gym. After all, calories per hour exercising. Calories per hour of exercise. Who's doing this? Nutristrategy.com. Never heard of them. I have no idea who Nutristrategy is. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Aerobics. I'm actually 180 pounds. That's convenient. 500 calories from an hour of aerobics. 92 more rows. Ballroom dance. I just saw an advertisement from the continuing ed department last week for a ballroom dance class. So 180 here, and then ballroom 450 for an hour. Really? An hour of ballroom dancing is 500 calories. Oh, fast and slow. Okay, so like if you're doing the cha-cha, then you could lose 450 calories per hour. If you're doing a rumba or a waltz, it's a slow waltz, it's 250. Okay, what about an exercise you've heard of before? G. It only goes to G. Is it expecting me to pay a subscription? Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Walking, slow walk. 1 hour of slow walk, 160 calories. So if in order to lose the 400 we're talking about, we're looking at like 3 hours of walking. And you may say 3 hours, nobody got time for that. You know, you have 2 full-time jobs. You are a Queensborough student. You have to run home before the babysitter quits so you can take care of your baby and change their diaper and feed. And then you have to have time for sleep. You don't have 3 hours to exercise. Okay, so what if I walk very, very fast? Then that's a half an hour of very, very fast walking. Well, if you can, but the problem is if you never exercised before and you are completely out of shape and you try to walk at 5 miles per hour, you're going to break something. You're going to pull a muscle. You may even trip, fall on your face, end up in the emergency room. So it's not. This is almost running. This is almost a brisk jog. So what about like a moderate speed, 3 miles per hour? So it's an hour and a half. 400 calories is an hour and a half of walking. If this website is correct. I have no idea how accurate these numbers are, but you got the idea now. So how did I get here? I just started with calories per hour exercise. So exercise should not be your only source of weight loss, because you don't have the time. None of us have that kind of time. Instead, well, except for the very, very rich, of course, and those whose job it is to stay in shape, like professional athletes. But everybody else, we don't have the time. So instead, we want to go after the weight reduction through from the kitchen. That thing about we were hunter-gatherers, and there we learned to cherish and love carbohydrates, salts, and fats, and it's hardwired into our brain. Let's take that one step further. Before we invented houses, roofs, before we invented agriculture, before we invented refrigerators and the modern supermarket system, the availability of food was really random. Some days there was enough to eat, some days it was a famine, and people literally starved to death. Entire villages could get wiped out from a famine. So, at the time, that long ago, there was a gene that whenever there was a famine phase, a period of undernutrition, that the body switched into famine mode much more easily, and its calorie output, its calorie burning, its energy levels were reduced to save energy, to save food, save calories. And it helped people with that gene survive times of famine. The problem is that here in Queens, New York in 2025, the idea of a famine where you go for days without eating anything is pretty rare. The probability is pretty rare. So what about people with that kind of a gene, where as soon as they intake any amount of food, it's quickly shunted away into long-term storage? And by long-term storage, I mean fat. So that's why some people seem to have trouble burning off their fat compared to other people. There's a million different reasons, but one of the reasons is that they may have a thrifty gene that will be very useful when society collapses, when there's a zombie apocalypse, when there's a nuclear apocalypse, and everything we know about civilization is completely lost, and we go back to surviving as hunter-gatherers. Okay, people with the thrifty gene will survive better. But until that day comes, people with the thrifty gene tend to gain weight easier, and they tend to lose weight more difficult, make it more difficult. No matter who you are, there is something called a metabolic rate, which is the rate at which energy is burnt off. Food is converted to ATP, adenosine triphosphate. You don't need to know that, but you've probably heard of it. Which is the energy of the body. Basal metabolic rate is the number of calories an average person will burn off while not doing anything. Basic, like not doing anything. Not even standing up to go to the bathroom. Not even standing, they don't go to the bathroom, they don't walk to the bathroom. If you put a tube up their urethra and a diaper to catch number 2, and somebody comes by every day and cleans it all out, then they don't have to go to the bathroom, so they just lay in bed. They don't even have to lift a fork to put food in their mouths. They don't even have to chew food is injected straight into their veins, pre-digested. Now, how many calories per day do they need to live? You know what? They don't even have to breathe. A machine will breathe for them. So basically, I'm talking about somebody in a vegetative state, in a coma. Now, how many calories do they need to survive in a day? And that's the basal metabolic rate. See how that number is interesting but not very useful because we're not in a coma. So isn't there a better number to use to base our calorie baseline to? And yes, there's called the resting metabolic rate. A resting metabolic rate is how many calories you will burn per day through sedentary activity. Now we're talking about, yes, you do stand up and walk to the bathroom. Yes, you do lift the fork to put food in your mouth, and yes, you chew. So you do all of these things to live basically like a couch potato. You don't really exercise, you never work out, you just do the bare minimum physical activity to hold down a job, to go to the supermarket, to cook for yourself, to accept a food delivery from DoorDash, the pizza delivery guy. So the bare minimum physical activity to do an ordinary life, that's the resting metabolic rate. Because that's a much more useful number, because then after that, any extra exercise you do, any extra calories you burn off by actually doing things, then that's like a bonus. And this is how I calculate my diet. I calculate my resting metabolic rate, and then I count up all the calories I eat for the day, and inevitably I'm going to eat more calories than my resting metabolic rate, which is normal. It's not a reason to panic, because after all, I am not a couch potato. I'm actually semi-active. I'm moderately active. And then the amount above the resting metabolic rate, I will burn off at the gym, being active. And hopefully, between those two, reduce the calories going in and increase the calories burning off. I hope to get myself to into the normal range of weight class. If you want to know more about exactly how I calculated this, I'm going to make a second extra credit assignment called the nutrition counter. And so after I finish recording this video, I will go off to the gym, and then when I come back and have lunch, I will record the extra credit assignment instructions for extra credit homework 2. Also, there's an Excel spreadsheet I made for myself, so you can see how I make the Excel spreadsheet. So the main reason why I'm talking about nutrition is because of heart disease, because that's what kills more Americans than anything else. But there are other benefits of not being obese, or the flip side is there are risk factors of obesity that affects people in other ways, like mental health. Where's my mouse? Mental health. I said heart disease, and that's part of the cardiovascular system. Respiratory. Sleep apnea is when the person stops breathing in the middle of the night and they're snoring heavily. The snoring is not that big of a problem. It's just it creates relationship issues, but physical medical situation, the real problem is that snoring means that they probably have periods of apnea where they stop breathing altogether. It has effects on the digestive system. There's effects on the bones and joints. For every kilogram of excess weight, there is about a 10% increasing risk of arthritis later in life. There are endocrine problems, and with endocrine, the big one is diabetes, but there are other hormones involved. The reproductive system too can be affected by chronic untreated uncontrolled obesity. And that's all I'll say about those, because this is not a medical class. But anyway, so basal metabolic rate. Well, I just said basal BMR is not that useful. I know, but here is a context, something to put things in context. Remember, it's how many calories you need to survive while in a coma, and it's broken down by gender and age range. So below 30 and above 30. I am well above 30, and so my basal is right here. But actually, my resting metabolic rate is a little higher, and I'm going to use the R instead. Okay. Oh, I'm not only am I well above 30, I'm actually above 50. So actually, there's another category where for people over 50 years old, because the metabolic rate keeps diminishing with age. So I'm actually, my RMR is actually lower than 50-year-old's BMR. That's interesting. So factors contributing to overweight and obesity, psychological factors, and that's the big one. So there are a million factors contributing to being overweight and obesity. It's not just one. So if your social media influencer tries to say it's one and only one problem, and if you deal with that one problem, you will no longer be obese. In fact, buy my book, buy my product, and it will fix that one problem, and it will fix your obesity. So okay, so that is absolutely not true. There are a million factors contributing to obesity. Some of them are psychological. In fact, the most common one is psychological. It's the decision to buy that item of food. Is the decision to buy one item of food and not a different item of food. But psychological factors have all these influences too. And remember that food companies are spending millions of dollars buying the best psychologists available to try to play you like a puppet, play you like a dog, to trick you into buying their product. Environmental factors, advertising, which is, well, the psychology is out in the environment as advertising. Portion size. For every item of food that I talk about throughout this semester, somebody out there is going to say, my grandparents ate that and they lived to be 100 years old. So you must not know what you're talking about. If you get a chance, ask your grandparents how much they ate. It's not just what they ate, but how much they ate. And they will tell you that portion sizes were way, way smaller in the old days than they are now. Why are portion sizes so big? Why is the normal entree size today in a restaurant the size that would have been called supersized 100 years ago, 50 years ago? Competition. Restaurants are always trying to attract more business from their competitors, so they have to offer more. You may say, are you crazy? Have you seen the portion sizes these days? They keep getting smaller. That's inflation. That's another thing. But if you are willing to pay the new prices, then they will give you more, because they want your business after all. Prepackaged foods has increasing amounts of who knows what. There are chemicals that didn't exist on this planet 100 years ago that are now being put in our foods. And there are a lot of chemicals in American foods that have been banned in Europe and Asia. So, and why are we allowed to eat them here in America? Because Congress lets the companies do it. So the nutrition labels are on almost everything, but people still don't read them. And that's causing obesity to appear in younger and younger people with every generation. I just mispronounced that. Sorry. It's not psychological, it's physiological. Physiological means body. Psychological is the mind, and I'm combining psycho and social. Instead of editing this video to make it look like I never make a mistake, I'm just going to leave it in there and say, yes, I make mistakes, and I am now correcting myself. Physiological means about the way the body works. Psychological is how the mind works, and this is the mental side, and this is the social side of health. So this is where the corporations spend millions of dollars buying the best psychologists money can buy to trick you into buying more product. Social and economic too. There's something called food deserts. People living in poverty can only afford to live in poor areas of the city. And there's a problem now in that fresh fruits and vegetables are expensive. You may say, no, they're not. I can get a great price on fresh fruits and vegetables. Look, you're driving your car to the suburb supermarket that is very well stocked. And there, maybe you're getting good deals on fresh fruits and vegetables. But the problem is that fresh fruits and vegetables economically cannot compete with junk food. Junk food is cheaper to make, and they have a longer shelf life. So an item of junk food, a candy bar, the store owner puts it on a shelf, and then 10 years later somebody finally buys it, and then the customer eats it. They're happy. The store owner made the sale. They're happy. Everybody's happy, except the doctor, of course, and the friends and family who care about this person and their health. But the customer is happy. Meanwhile, how can the store owner put fresh fruits and vegetables on the shelf? The problem is that after a couple of days they start to spoil, and then nobody will buy it, so they have to throw it away. So the price of the remaining fruits and vegetables have to go up to make up for the spoilage, which is making fresh fruits and vegetables more expensive than a candy bar. And then in a poor neighborhood, low socioeconomic level neighborhood, people who are struggling to afford life, and they have to make hard decisions like when they can pay the electricity bill, the water bill, buying clothes, new clothes to fix the old ones that are tearing. And now they have to make a hard decision about what to buy, and they're looking at items of junk food that are cheaper than a fruit and vegetable. Then they're making a unfortunate decision. And so stocking fresh fruits and vegetables is actually not economically attractive to store owners as stocking junk food. So in these poor areas of the city, the availability of regular supermarket grocery stores is even less, and then the people there who live there, forced to live there, they have to take mass transit like an hour away to the nearest supermarket, and that's called a food desert. People grew up with food as a reward for good behavior in childhood. And this is what I meant when I said it took a lifetime to build up that habit, to lock it in, for the cement to set. It's going to take a lifetime to undo it and redirect that psychological effect to somewhere else. Lifestyle factors. So people overestimate their daily activity level. In the extra credit for Nutrition Counter, I will just invite people to estimate how many calories they burn off while exercising, and every one of you is going to overestimate it. It's just human nature. Don't feel bad about it, but be aware that's what's happening. Just Word to the wise. Okay. Time spent sitting has been shown to have an adverse effect on health, and I'll talk about that next week. Okay. Where was this? Previous slide. So every kilogram of excess weight implying that there is an ideal weight, right? If this link is saying that there's, for every kilogram of weight a patient is above a recommended weight, then the inevitable question is, what is the recommended weight? How much should people weigh? And here's the category. There are 4 categories. The percents don't matter in this class. Don't worry about the percents in this class. But just for definition's sake, here it is, and you can pause and read this on your own time. I'll just point out that morbid obesity here is 100% or more, which means twice recommended weight. Alright, so once again, what is the recommended weight? And there's two of the most common ways to measure measure whether you are in the normal or recommended weight level or not. One of them is the body mass index. The other one is body fat percent. Body fat percent is complicated. It must be done by an expert. It requires special equipment. You have to go to a clinic and be measured by that equipment, and then they will print out a value report for you, and then they will tell you how much body fat percent you have, and then based upon your height and weight, now they know a more accurate level of ideal weight for you. It's not the same for everybody, right? You can't say everybody should be this many pounds. It's per height and body fat percent, and age plays a part too. That's the more complicated method. This BMI is the easier method. So guess what is used more? The complicated method or the easier method? It's the easier method. The BMI is less accurate than body fat percent. Unfortunately, it's easier. It's only weight and it's only height. You don't have to memorize the equation. It's generally available. It's easy to get. So let's go back to my search engine and let's just find the BMI calculator here. And look at that. The first link is purple. The second link is purple. So I've been using this. I've been going here a lot. Let's try something new. Calculator.net. Never heard of them. Never heard of them. Calculator.net. Let's see what they come up with. So I am 58 years old. I'm a male. I'm 5 feet 7 inches. Yeah, I know. And I weigh 180 pounds this morning. So it says BMI is 28, and does it list the categories? Let's see. It says the healthy range is 18 to 25, and I'm a 28. So it's in the drawing right here. I am in the overweight category. Obesity is 35 to 40. 40 or above is morbidly obese, and you've heard of like gastric bypass surgery. They do not, surgeons will not do gastric bypass surgery on anybody under a BMI of 40. The reason is that surgery, it's major surgery. It has all the risks of major surgery. So there's no reason to, it does not justify exposing a patient to the risks of major surgery if they are not that obese. So people under 40 BMI, usually the surgeon will refuse to do gastric bypass. They'll tell you to do it another way. But then over 40, the risks to health, the immediate risks to health to people of a BMI over 40, now justifies the risks of major surgery for gastric bypass. But anyway, here I am, 28, which is more or less what I get in the other websites. So good. I guess this place is not that far off. So what's this for? Oh, graph charts. Nice. Here's the table. Oh, the percent of people. So they're saying that for children. Children are in this range. The percentage of children who are in each of the categories. Interesting read. I'm going to read up on these things later. This doesn't seem like a bad website. Well, at least for this page. But anyway, so what would it take for me to get this needle in the green? I can't change my height. I'm only getting older. So next year, when I'm 59, actually I'm going to be 59 this year. So next year when I'm 60, see how the needle is creeping up. Let me change this to 155 pounds. And that puts me in the green, just in the green, just under the green. Actually, if I'm 159, that should still put me in the green. But you know, this is not a computer game. This is not, I'm not trying to game the system. I want to legitimately be healthy. Like I'm not fudging the numbers. I want to actually be solidly healthy. So I'm going to put myself, I want to be in the green for real, not towing the edge. So that's my goal for 2026. I want it to be 155 pounds, which means I want to lose 25 pounds in a year and a half. Can I do it? Can I do it? Well, in the extra credit assignment for homework 1, I pledged to lose 10 pounds this semester, and then if I lose another 10 pounds before the end of this year, and then another 5 pounds sometime next year, then it'll get me there. That's the hope. Okay, here's the category. I expect you to memorize these categories, however. So it'll be a test question. I'm going to give you a BMI number and then ask you, where are you? I mean, where is this hypothetical person in which category? Like choice A, choice B, choice C, choice D, choice E, etc. For those of you who say, but I want to gain weight, I don't want to lose weight, I want to gain weight. And so, first of all, I envy you, but maybe I should have paused before I said that, because what if your medical condition made you underweight? You're not just genetically underweight, like you're suffering from something specific. So how do you gain weight and still be healthy? Because you don't want to just eat hamburgers and junk food. You don't want to gain weight on junk food. So the answer is exercise more, and there you will gain weight in muscle, not fat. Then increase your protein in your diet, but not extremely, because excess protein in the diet is stressing on the kidneys. So if you have any reason to guess that your kidneys may not be perfectly healthy, then talk to your doctor. And then allow yourself some carb. You allow yourself a little more carb than usual, than everybody else, because you have wiggle room for that. And now, for those who are trying to get gains, muscle gains, to be to impress your friends, then and you want to get shredded and you want to have abs, I'm going to tell you that abs are made in the kitchen. How is that possible? Aren't abs made in the gym, in the sit-ups? Isn't that how you make abs? So exercises strengthen your abdominal muscles for sure, but in order for people to see it, which is why you wanted the abs in the first place, you have to stop hiding it. Abs are hidden behind a thick layer of abdominal fat. So you can do as many sit-ups as you want, crunches as you want, but if you have a thick layer of subcutaneous abdominal fat, nobody's going to see it. That's why abs are made in the kitchen. When you look shredded, what you're doing is that subcutaneous fat layer, subcutaneous means under the skin, that fat layer under the skin is hiding your muscles. So if you want to look shredded, you want to thin out the fat layer. You don't want it to go to zero, of course, but you want to thin it out. Fat actually has some very, very important jobs to do in your body. So you don't want to be zero fat. And then allow yourself sugar, but try to get quality sugar, like from whole fruits, like not prepackaged fruits either, not dried and candied fruits, but whole fruits you buy at the grocery store. So in a sense, the recommendations are the same for everybody. Eat enough protein, get exercise, and eat whole fruits and vegetables. Reduce processed foods, reduce sugars. Okay, if you want to lose weight with these miracle drugs that have been in the news for the last couple of years, and everybody's thought of it, right? Anybody who is wanting to lose weight has thought about taking these drugs. So what is it? What's going on with these drugs here? It turns out that these drugs work by suppressing cravings. They don't really work through preventing like digestion of foods or absorption of foods. What they do is it reduces the person's need to put that food in their mouth in the first place. It reduces the cravings. Wait a minute, cravings for food? Can it do anything about the cravings for cigarettes or alcohol or illegal drugs or gambling or other addictions? And that it might be. So that's a very interesting question, and there is research going on right now exploring those other avenues of use for these drugs. There was like a recent research report about that and cigarettes, I think. Wegovy cigarettes, or am I misremembering? Always skip the AI. Healthline.com may help with smoking cessation. Forbes, well, that's a news website. WebMD, Forbes.com. So yeah, see, there may be some research already appearing about like Wegovy and Ozempic and smoking, and there are other research efforts on the at least in the proposal stages last year about other addictions with Wegovy. Okay, anyway, what is it? How does it help you lose weight? So what happens is you set up a diet plan for yourself, a health journey, but then you have a failure of will, failure of self-discipline, compared to the daily assaults you take from advertising and also psychology. So what these drugs do is it takes away that temptation. The person who takes these drugs just don't want to eat more anymore. They get hungry. They still get hungry, but after they've eaten enough for their body, they don't feel the desire to eat more. Ever felt that way? Ever eat a full meal and then think, as you're sitting at the table, you can feel your stomach stretching, distended, but a part of your mind is like, I still want to eat something. Ever feel that way? That's cravings. That's not hunger, that's cravings. And these drugs take it away. So people are able to eat less. These drugs do have some side effects for some people, and so then they had to stop. But not for most people, and for a few people it was very severe, and it really caused serious medical problems. But that's true for all drugs. No matter what drug you're talking about, not even in vaccinations, injections, they all cause serious side effects for a few people. By the time it is approved for use in the general public, the percentage of people suffering severe side effects have been reduced to a lot. Otherwise, it would never be approved. But they all cause severe side effects to a small percentage of people. It's called the bell curve in action. The benefit is not only that it reduces obesity for these people, but it also means then that it reduces the complications of obesity and the money spent dealing with those other complications, the medical bills from those other complications that follow on from obesity, which is a justification then for insurance companies to pay for these drugs. Because we should go to insurance companies and say, you should help pay for these drugs so I can take it. And if they say, why? These drugs are expensive. They're like $1,000 a month. And then our argument is, yeah, but by not being obese, we will not be billed for medical bills for these other complications of obesity that you won't have to deal with in the future. So it's like an investment, and it may end up making you more money in the future. Anyway, that's the argument for now. Okay, the cons. And the cons, I already mentioned a couple of the cons, that it can cause side effects for a few people and very severe side effects for a rare percentage. And the other con is that it's very expensive, $1,000 a month for now. As long as the patents are in place, it'll be $1,000 a month. And some insurance companies will just come out and say, no, sorry, we hear your arguments, but we've done our math and we decide it's not worth the potential cost savings is not worth the real loss to profits if we agree. But then here's another one that people rarely talk about. How do these drugs work? By reducing cravings. What that means is people on these drugs never develop self-discipline. What is a self-discipline? People who are dieting the natural way, the old school way, when they feel this craving to eat something more, they fight this feeling, they overcome this feeling, they win. It's a battle, and self-discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The less you use it, the weaker you get. So people who successfully stick to a diet for the long term have been exercising the self-discipline muscle, and it's strong. People who have been on these drugs the whole time never exercised this muscle. So if for any reason they have to come off the drug, maybe they develop a side effect and they have to stop, or their insurance will not cover it anymore and they can't afford, or they lost their insurance, or they lost their job and they can't afford to take it and they stop taking this drug, then the weight comes back. Because for the people who came off the drug, it's like you or me having not been on a diet for the last 30 years and suddenly saying, tomorrow I will eat perfectly. That's impossible. It's not going to happen. Your mind, our minds, my mind cannot handle it. We cannot go from never exercising to show up at the gym the next day and then try to lift 200 pounds of weights. That is not going to happen. So people who come off the drug get the weight back. There are other side effects, unexpected ones like this one. in last year, spring, where it seems to interfere with birth control pills. So word of caution there for those of you who are on birth control pills. It is not proven yet because the number of cases are so small that it is a low sample size. Remember this bias from last week's lecture? So this means it's an anecdotal finding, but this is one of the things that have been showing up in the news. So, moving on. What have I been talking for an hour? So, and we're like half done here. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a 2-hour class, and this is why I pre-record the lecture, so I can talk for as long as I want, knowing that you are free now to speed up the playback speed or skip around as you would like. Anyway, for those of you who do choose to go on a health journey, whether it's weight loss or weight gain or exercise or athletic level, there is something called a plateau. And this one's called a diet plateau, but this is true for any other measured health level, which is initially you will have, your dreams, what your expectation is that there's a straight line progress from like day 1 to whatever, and you will see this continuous progress. Actually, it's supposed to be by month. These are supposed to be monthly, and then it's hypothetical anyway. So this is what you expect. The reality is that there is some initial progress, and it makes you feel great, and then unexplainably there's no progress. There's a slowing of progress, or no progress, or even a little bit of gain. And so when you are down from here to here, you're feeling good because it's matching your expectation, and then there's a rise or flattening, and that's called the plateau. And then eventually physics catches up, and then you lose some more, but then something happens, and then you come all the way back even before you start dropping again. What's going on here? This is called, this is another example, this is a real example of what I said before, that there is a million factors going into obesity. There's a million factors going into your weight level. All you're doing is playing with a couple of variables like calories in versus calories out, but we're not dealing with all the other inputs, all the other outputs, the risk factors and contributing factors. So they're coming into play. One of them is your body switches into famine mode. Your body was used to eating this many calories per day, and then it's noticing that it's getting less per day. So your body, not realizing it's living in 2025 in a modern society with a modern economic system, your body, your DNA thinks it's still 100,000 years ago living in the wilderness. So your body is thinking, uh-oh, we seem to be in the middle of a famine. We for some reason the food is not available anymore. Let's switch into famine mode because we don't know when we'll be able to eat like the old days again. So your energy output level actually drops. Your metabolic rate actually drops. What can you do about this? Stick through it. Don't give up. Push through. Practice that self-discipline, and eventually the physics will catch up, because your body can go into famine mode and like emphasize storage and conservation, but if the amount of calories coming in continuously is lower, and the amount of calories you're burning off is always, keep pushing it higher, then eventually your body's going to run out of stored calories, and your body will start losing weight. That is this continuous progress. So instead of like this steady line down, it's going to be like a wiggly line down. This is why you don't want to go for short-term weight loss, short-term dramatic weight loss. You want to go for long, slow, sustainable weight loss. So this is where I am today, February 25, 180 pounds. And this is where I started with. So here's my journey, and I went to as low as 170 last year, only a couple of months ago, only 3 months ago. What happened? In 3 months I gained 20 pounds. Well, the holidays happened, and my usual scheduled cheat days turned into, and then for the holidays I usually schedule a cheat week. Well, unfortunately in January it turned out to be a cheat month, so I undid the progress from a year ago, 2 years ago. But that doesn't mean I'm going to quit. I'm going to keep on trying. So I'm going to pledge to reach my 170 by the end of this semester. I don't feel like I have to catch up. I'm just continuing my journey, that's all. And then my goal for sometime in 2026 is to reach the normal BMI category. Right. The next few slides are an explanation of the macro and micronutrients. I'm not going to spend your time reading slides to you. So pause here and read the slide carefully before you move on. I will just point out a couple of things. You've heard the 8 glasses a day for everybody. Well, that doesn't make sense. One size doesn't fit all. One size fits all hats do not fit my head. So the 8 glasses of water may not apply to you. Just drink when you're thirsty. But when you are drinking, drink water. Plain water without sugar in it, without any other crazy chemicals in it. Not alcohol, because alcohol is a diuretic. Diuretic means it makes you pee. So drinking a beer will just make you pee out a beer's worth of water, and you're back to square one. Instead, drink, and you'll still be thirsty. So drink water when you are thirsty. If you try to drink too much, then that's going to cause problems too. And if you drink too little, it causes problems too. So you should stay hydrated, but listen to your body. All right, here are the macronutrients, and then down here are the micronutrients. Protein. It's not just for your muscles. Protein is used by every cell in your body. Proteins are what make up enzymes, which make your body chemistry possible. Proteins play a huge role in immunity, so lots of reasons to get enough protein. Proteins are made of amino acids, which you remembered from high school, and they're called essential. 20 of them are essential because our bodies can't make it, so you must eat it. You want to get about did I say it in detail? Let me change this. You want to try to get about 0.8 grams protein per kilogram body weight. If you're very active, you can increase it to about 1 gram per pound of body weight, but I'll talk about that in the physical fitness lecture next week. And it's going to be hard because meat is expensive and inflation is hitting us pretty hard right now, but this is the recommendation for now. Okay, now what if you don't want to eat animal meat? You're a vegetarian. Understandable. And it is very possible. I'm bleeding off the slide here, so I need to shrink the. Okay, it's very possible to eat all the protein you need through vegetables. 2 things now. Protein in vegetables come tightly tied with carbohydrates. So for those of you who are trying to watch your carbohydrates to reduce it, you're kind of in a bind. If you're trying to be a vegetarian and reduce carbs, you're kind of in a difficult position. But it requires more research, more careful planning in the grocery shopping and the cooking. And vegetable proteins are low in vitamin B12, which is you need to live. So for vegans, especially vegans, you should get a vitamin B12 supplement. Ask your doctor. Fish is a great source of proteins, and I will talk more about sources of protein in nutrition lecture, which is, this is the nutrition lecture. Fish is a great source of protein, but so are beans. Anyway, I'll talk about fish and their pros and cons in the food source lecture, which is in lecture 13. Carbohydrates, something that a common misunderstanding that the general public has is that they think a sugar is not a carb. So they would say things like, yeah, I'm eating bread, but at least I cut all the sugar. I cut a lot of sugar out of my diet. Here's the thing. Bread, bread, wheat, rice are all complex carbohydrates, which means they're long chains of carbon and hydrogen, carbon with hydrogen stuck to the sides. But they're so long that our bodies cannot absorb it out of the stomach, out of the intestine. They have to be broken down into smaller molecules so that they can be absorbed. Otherwise, they will stay in the intestine and stomach. So your digestion breaks long chain carbohydrates down into simple carbohydrates, and these are the sugars. Your table sugar is sucrose. The sugar in your regular soda is fructose. Glucose is the classic one that science knows about. We carry dextrose in the ambulance. Lactose is simple sugars from milk. These can all be absorbed straight into the body, but this is literally table sugar and soda water sugar. So for you to brag that, I don't eat these anymore, but then you still eat these, guess what? You're putting sugar into your body anyway. Which comes to the low-fat diet. So I said that heart disease kills more Americans than anything else, and it's been like that for decades. So the rise of heart disease in America was alarming, very scary, and on looking into it, scientists found out that one of the main causes of heart disease, not the only one, but one of the common cause of heart disease was called atherosclerosis. And I'll talk about atherosclerosis in the chronic diseases lecture 9. But atherosclerosis is the buildup of fat on the inside of arteries. And so when that news came out, people thought, well, if I want to reduce fat in my arteries, then I should eat less fat. And so the low-fat craze took off. And customers were demanding low-fat foods. Companies started putting the low-fat label on their packages. Foods that never had fat in the first place were proudly declaring themselves low-fat, and Americans gobbled it up. Low-fat foods. So did it work? Did rates of obesity, atherosclerosis, and heart disease go down? No. Instead, they kept going up, and they are still a crisis level today. What the hell happened? If I'm eating low-fat foods, why did I still get fat? Why are people like me still getting heart disease? Remember I said complex carbs are digested into sugars to be absorbed into the body so that they can be used as energy? Well, what happens to the leftover sugar? Your body makes as much energy as it needs. What happens to the remaining sugars? Well, they're not gotten rid of, because you never know when there may be a famine. So the simple sugars are then stored in long-term storage, which is fat. So excess sugars are converted to fat, and that's why people still get fat, and people still got heart disease and died from heart disease, even though they focused on low-fat foods. Not only did complex carbs like bread, rice, cereals, not only were people already eating too much of that, but guess what happened to the low-fat foods? Fat is flavor. Fat makes food taste good. That's why you like eating fatty foods. And when the company takes fat out of the food, it makes the food taste horrible. And nobody's going to buy it. So what do they do to make that food taste good again? They load it with carbs and sugars. They pack it with salt, with carbohydrates, sugars, and salts. So people eat these low-fat foods that have extra carbs, extra sugars. They get fat, they get atherosclerosis, they get heart disease. That's what happened. Wait a minute, wheat and rice? My grandparents ate wheat and rice, and they lived to be 100 years old. In fact, didn't wheat and rice create civilization? So how can they possibly be bad? Remember, your grandparents ate small amounts of food. The portion sizes were normal or natural in those days. Today, our portion sizes are supersized everywhere. And these food products created civilization. Civilization doesn't need to be created anymore. It exists. We did very well. Civilization is strong. We have a strong economic, worldwide, global economic system that makes food cheap, that makes carbs, fats, and salts cheap. So you can walk into a gas station with $20 and eat way too much food. So it's not about creating civilization. We are now in a civilization, and food is now too easy to get, and we eat way too much. I'm not saying wheat and rice is bad, unless you're diabetic. But for non-diabetics, wheat and rice is not bad. What's bad is that we eat too much, and we are so conditioned to it through reward in childhood, and corporations with their advertising, and psychologists, and it's made eating too many carbohydrates irresistible, and it makes eating the right amounts so difficult. I like to call it the sugar industrial complex. It's a play on a term, and what's happening is these corporations, these billion-dollar multi-international corporations, their profits are too high for them to stop doing what they do, and they're trying to find every little way to make us buy another bag. They're trying to find every way to make their products irresistible, so that almost like we can't stop from buying another bag. And I'm here to say, you're not a dog, you're not a puppet. You can cut the strings, puppet strings, you can rewire the trigger, you can resist, you can fight back, you can take control over your carbohydrate intake. Of course you should eat carbs. Carbs are the easy, quick energy source we need to maintain to do the jobs we need to do throughout the day. But we eat too much. That's the problem. You're supposed to eat some, we just eat too much. Here is a list of recommendations of how to reduce sugar in your diet. I agree with all of them. It came from this nice YouTube channel, but it's the only video I watched out of them, so I cannot vouch for the rest of that channel. You should eat fiber. Fiber helps reduce constipation. And if you say constipation, that's for old people. I'm too young to think about diverticulitis or cancer. Oh yeah? Well, I'm telling you that colon, people in their 20s and people in their 30s are having increasing rates of colon cancer. What's causing this? Everybody has their pet theories. These are recent news articles, so definitive research has not been completed yet, but it's happening. So to help you reduce your risk of colon cancer and diverticulosis, then you want to make sure you get enough fiber. Americans are supposed to get 30 grams of fiber per day. Should I rearrange these slides so it makes more sense? It follows my... Americans are supposed to eat about 30 grams per day. Again, one size fits all doesn't fit everybody, but so the average is 30 per day, depending on your medical situation. What does a typical American eat per day nowadays? It's half that, only about 15 grams per day. So if you are the average person, you should try to find ways to eat more fiber. The best way, of course, is fresh fruits and vegetables. The only people who should consider fiber supplements are those who actually are dealing with constipation now and who first consult their doctor, because there is a possibility to eat too much fiber, and too much fiber can ironically cause constipation. So, and then way too much fiber can cause serious medical problems. So talk to your doctor first before you take any kind of supplement. Some nutrition labels will list out the soluble versus insoluble fiber, and I'll just mention that it's a thing, but for the levels of this class, He102, I'm not going to go into more detail. Over in the nutrition class, which is He103, then your instructor will go into more detail about what's the difference. For now, just read those nutrition labels and try to increase your grams of fiber to around 30 and then hold the line there. Fats. You've heard of good fats and bad fats. Actually, all fats are okay except trans fats. Okay, trans fats are bad no matter what. There's no reason to take trans fats. Trans fats are alien to the earth. They are creations of corporations because they make food taste better, they extend shelf life, and it makes the food cheaper, which everybody likes, except that now you're eating trans fats and that clogs arteries, leading to atherosclerosis and heart disease. So no, try not to ever eat any trans fats in your food. But other than them, actually we're supposed to eat a little bit of everything. So even the bad fats are okay in small amounts. The problem is bad fats are too plentiful in our society. If you are a resident of Queens, New York, you have eaten too many bad fats. That's what makes it bad. Otherwise, you're supposed to eat a little bit of saturated fats. By the way, fats are good for us. It does all these good things for us. So of course you're supposed to have some fats. Now, we don't eat enough unsaturated fats. Why not? Because sometimes they're expensive, sometimes they are hard to find, sometimes they're only available through cooking, and few people in Queens, New York seem to have time to cook at home. Olive oil is a whole nother issue, and I'll talk about in Food Supply Lecture 13 about how hard it is to find real olive oil. The olive oil industry is so full of international crime organizations faking it that you can't know for sure if the olive oil you bought is real. There are a few lucky people who grew up in a family, in a culture that uses olive oil all the time. So from youth, they learned how to taste the difference between the real thing and the fake, the good and the bad. But me, who never did that, I never grew up knowing the difference. I can't tell, I can't taste if I'm eating good or fake olive oil. So I get around it by just eating olives. I just buy regular olives from the grocery store. At least I know the olives are real. And in it is the olive oil, in it is the fiber, in it are the nutrients. So I just eat olives. Anyway, the problem with unsaturated fats is we don't eat enough. They're expensive and hard to find. Avocados, great source. Oh, here. Avocados, great source of unsaturated fats, but they're so expensive. Nuts, great source of unsaturated fats, but they're so calorie dense. So for me, who is trying to lose 20 pounds in 2 years, it's not really a great option for me. I use nuts as a snack, as emergency snacks. I bring nuts, cheese, and crackers with me to school to help me avoid the temptation of the vending machine, but I don't eat them regularly on purpose. But other great sources of unsaturated fats. Saturated fats are here, and see that they either taste great or they make the food cheaper, which is why we eat too much of that. You'll see this slide again in chronic diseases. So this is just what the atherosclerosis looks like that clogs arteries. Okay, vitamins. Everybody knows you're supposed to get vitamins. The best source of vitamins is fresh fruits and vegetables. If you're having trouble getting enough vitamins, then you can consider a vitamin supplement, but talk to your doctor first before you take them, because you may have a condition where you already have too many of a certain vitamin. Then you don't want to supplement that, right? That said, if you do get a supplement, you should be very careful of these 4 vitamins because they're fat soluble, which to oversimplify, fat soluble vitamins are easy to overdose, to get to toxic levels. So you can search on the internet for vitamin A toxicity, vitamin D toxicity, etc., and you will see why you're not supposed to eat too much of that. There was a real thing about vitamin D toxicity during the pandemic because some social media influencer went around telling people that vitamin D cures COVID. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But as a result, Americans, when they hear a little bit is good, they assume too much is better. And so they were overdosing on vitamin D and causing themselves vitamin D toxicity. How do you know you're not going to overdose on these fat-soluble vitamins? Read the label. Read the directions in the back of the label and stick to it. If you feel like it's not enough, talk to your doctor about how much more you should be taking. Water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C and B, the B's, are water-soluble. It means you can eat as many as you want and you'll pee it right out. So those people, those social media influencers who believe in like mega dose vitamin C's, like they'll eat an entire bottle of vitamin C pills in one day, every day, all they're really doing is making expensive urine. Your body will use what it wants and then it'll pee the rest out. Now, if they insist on mega dosing and force it even further, there's another problem with vitamin C. Vitamin C, the other name for vitamin C is ascorbic acid. And it's an acid. So guess what happens when you intake too much acid into your body? You acidify your blood, which is here. Let me do it this way. Is this my I wonder if this is my keyboard. My keyboard is very old. I really should get a new keyboard. I'm just cheap. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. And guess what happens when you take too much acid? You acidify your blood, and your body is expecting a pH in the neutral range. Making your blood acidic causes issues. But temporarily, because eventually this acid will get peed out because it's water soluble. So follow the directions. Okay, minerals are trace amounts, and as long as you eat a balanced meal, you don't need to worry about these. If you have a certain medical condition, then iron, calcium, magnesium may cause things. But then how would you know that? You would talk to your doctor. Of this list, potassium, etc. Of this list, sodium is a special thing, because sodium is something that Americans do take too much of on purpose. Because sodium is part of table salt, sodium chloride. And so you can see now why people may get too much sodium in their diet. And you've heard of that, right? Sodium can cause high blood pressure. Okay. There is a special consideration for certain segments of society. There is this trend in gourmet cooking, and its increasing popularity among internet people is they're using non-iodized salt. Sea salt, Himalayan salt, kosher salt, and other gourmet salts that are not iodized. And of course, there's the segment of society that thinks iodine is a conspiracy theory, so government is putting iodine to do whatever evil things governments do. Iodine is a real benefit for health, and it goes a little something like this. Back in World War I, they found that recruits from these parts of the country had higher rates of hypothyroidism. And one of the signs of hypothyroidism is goiter, which I won't search for, but you may find the pictures of goiter interesting. Go ahead and search for goiter on the internet, or hypothyroidism on the internet. Oh, here's goiter here. So search for it. Anyway, people from here, which is like the landlocked states mostly, were suffering from it. And they found out it's because of an iodine deficiency. So because of this experience, the government started putting iodine in all salt, and it cleared it right up. Hypothyroidism rates in these parts of the country is as low as the rest of the country. Why doesn't the rest of the country have hypothyroidism as high? Because they have plenty of fish. Seafood has plenty of iron in it. So that's why grocery store salt has iodine supplements. And if you are one of those people who insist or take pride in eating gourmet salt, then you want to make sure you have enough iodine in your diet, either through seafood or iodine supplements, I guess, if your doctor tells you to. So meanwhile, the other thing about salt is that it's famous for causing high blood pressure, and that's why hospital food tastes so bad. We as Americans are used to eating a lot of salt, and our sense of normal has been adjusted to those levels of salt. So when you go to the hospital and you stay overnight and you get hospital food and you taste it, and the hospital food has healthy amounts of salt, it tastes horrible. And then you go home and you complain of how bad the hospital food tastes. And what do? On the way home from the hospital, you stop at a fast food restaurant and then you eat the saltiest thing you can find on the menu. So our bodies are used to higher levels of salt. But the problem is that salt retains fluid. Salt retains water in your body, and that causes stress on the heart, and it leads to heart disease. In fact, people with heart disease and also chronic high blood pressure, they're put on water pills, diuretics, that makes them urinate the salt out, which then causes the water to go with them. You may have heard some internet social media influencers telling you salt is fake, or salt reduction is fake, salt is fine, you can eat as much salt as you want. Okay, so their reasoning is your kidneys are designed to keep your fluid levels and your salt levels normal. So if you eat a salty meal, you'll pee it right out, you'll urinate it right out, everything is fine. And they are correct from that point of view. However, now, what if you ate a salty meal every meal? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, you had a salty snack, you had an afternoon snack, you had a salty midnight snack, and you ate like that. Excess salt every day for years, for decades. Then you're putting in salt faster than your kidneys have a chance of pumping it out. So your salt levels in your body will always be high. Your fluid levels will always be high. You will have high blood pressure. You will be putting extra stress on your heart. So occasional salty meal is okay. If you visit a friend for dinner and their food is extra salty, don't freak out. Go ahead, eat the food. Be a good guest. Be a gracious guest. But then for the next couple of days, you want to eat normal amounts of salt. But what is normal? Because like I said, if you suddenly ate a normal amount of salt tomorrow, the food will taste horrible because you're used to eating large amounts of salt. So don't eat normal amounts of salt tomorrow. Instead, eat a little bit less tomorrow than you're used to. And then by the end of the week, eat a little bit less. And then by the end of the month, eat a little bit less. And after a couple of years, like 2 or 3 years, you will be down to normal amounts of salt, recommended amounts of salt. Your tastes will adjust. You'll barely notice it happening. That's what happened to me. And then one day I went to a restaurant and ate a regular entree, and I was blown away by how salty it was. Everybody else thought it was normal. It tasted fine. But to me, it was extra salty because I was used to the lower levels. So the other people at the table were passing the salt shaker around, and it came to me, and I said, no thanks, it's fine for me. Your taste will adjust, but it will take years. It will take years. So do it slowly, or you will give up. To do it quickly is not sustainable. This is why restaurant food tastes so good compared to when you cook it at home. They use too much sugar, too much fat, too much salt. When you cook at home, I hope that you feel a little guilty and you try to be a little healthy, but that ends up making the food you make at home not compared to restaurant food. But I'm telling you that when you cook at home, by having more control, better control over what goes into your food, you are actually eating healthier. Not to mention eating cheaper because you're cooking at home. So it's much better to cook at home. The gut microbiome are bacteria living in your large intestine. Don't freak out. We all have them. We're all supposed to have them because we evolved with them. Even before we became humans, like our previous ancestors, our mammal ancestors, a million years ago, a billion years ago, they had bacteria in their intestines, because how could you not, right? Living off the land in the wilderness like that. But something funny happened, that the bacteria and the mammals evolved together, and they created what's called a symbiotic relationship, meaning they depend on each other for survival. If you try to live without this gut bacteria today, you would become very, very sick. You would be so sick that the doctors will recommend a fecal transplant to put bacteria into you. A common hospital infection is a Clostridium difficile infection of the intestine. It causes bloody diarrhea. It happens in the hospital. How can a disease happen in the hospital? Aren't they supposed to keep us healthy? What happens is, in the hospital, if the patient has any other kind of infection, they sometimes get too much antibiotics, and the antibiotics do too good a job, and it not only kills the bacteria that was causing the problem, but they kill all the bacteria in the body, including the gut microbiome. And then that opens up. What happens is that our gut microbiome acts like a defense militia against more dangerous bacteria. So without these defender bacteria in our intestines protecting them, the dangerous bacteria is now free to come in and take up space. It's like free real estate. So the Clostridium bacteria comes in, sets up shop, causes bloody diarrhea. That's one of the jobs of our gut microbiome. There are many, many more jobs, including mood. In fact, it's so definitive now. Let's add that in there. Moderating emotions, mood. So, you know what? I'm not a psychologist. Let's just say mental health. Yeah, people without their gut microbiome suffers mental health issues too. So you want to have a healthy gut microbiome. So how do you have a healthy gut microbiome? You want to give them things to eat, and that's what the probiotics are all about. So beans and fiber, foods high in fiber, other foods high in fiber, and also fermented foods. So fermented foods actually contain the bacteria, some of the bacteria that you want. Not all of it, but some of it. So if you like any of these foods, then have some on a regular basis. Like once a week is a good one. Some nutritionists say more often, but depending on your lifestyle and your income and your work schedule, every day may be too much of an ask. So like try to get one of these once a week, just to like repopulate as needed. Overall, this is the recommendation from the government. myplate.gov. Go ahead and check out that website, look around. There's some good nutritional advice out there. I need to say, however, that things that come from the government are influenced by lobbyists, so it's not pure science. There's some economic lobbying in there. Maybe I should leave it at that. So most of what they say, at least by nutrition, is true, but most, not everything. Some things about the some of the things about the nutrition plans or diets out there. So I already said, if you're vegan, vegetarian, you want to get B12 supplements, but you know that already. If you care enough to be vegan, that means you care enough to do your research, which means you've inevitably run into these comments. Vegetarians tend to be healthier to a point. After all, vegetables do have their carbohydrates. So yes, vegetarians still die of heart disease, but not as much as people who eat junk food. And that's the thing. People who focus on vegetarianism, they tend to care about what they eat to the point where they avoid junk food and processed sugars. People who look to organic foods, some people are serious about it. Some people just think organic means healthier or more natural, and so they're willing to pay more. The reality is that organic food so far doesn't seem to be any healthier. They do avoid some synthetic chemicals, and that's good, but organic doesn't mean no preservatives or no pesticides. They just use organic pesticides, and not everything organic is healthy. After all, cyanide is healthy. Cyanide is 100% cyanide is 100% organic. Cyanide is 100% natural, but it's a suicide pill. So it's not healthy. It's a suicide pill. So not everything 100% natural is healthy. And now there are also some companies who cheat. They put the organic label on their packaging even though it's not. And eventually they get caught, but it takes a while. And so the organic label just is not a guarantee of health that you think it is. When you buy animal feed, animal flesh, animal meats, some of those animals are fed antibiotics to help cheapen the meat because I'll talk about it in Food Sources, Lecture 13, but for now I'll tell you that some of your cheaper meats are animals raised with antibiotics. So if you care about these things, you want to look for packaging that proudly says no antibiotics in the production. Irradiation is a way to sterilize the food to make sure nothing is alive inside the package. It does not make the food radioactive. GMOs are genetically modified organisms. It makes the food cheaper. So if you need to watch your budget to save money, you cannot afford to worry about GMO. Genetically modified organisms sounds like Frankenstein or mad science experiments, and that is the main complaint. It sounds like a bad science horror movie. The reality is that so far, short-term and medium-term studies have found no harm to consumers. And then what about long-term studies? Well, this technology hasn't been around long enough to watch for long-term effects. So stay tuned. It'll take another 10 years before, if any long-term effects are there, to be noticed. In general, if there is a fat diet, because I can't mention them all, but if there is a fat diet, some things to keep in mind of. The fat diet, because you heard about it from your social media influencer, is championed by people who have normal medical conditions. They have no medical conditions. So if you do have any, then that's a cause for you to pause and be concerned, because maybe the assumptions this influencer is making does not apply to you. Fat diets are all about the hype, and unless there's like solid science research behind it, see Lecture 2 last week, then it could just be advertising, not actually science. If it's too good to be true, it's probably not true, because if it promises easy come, then it's easy go. And by the way, if you read the fine print, the details of whatever fat diet you're looking at, there's a good chance that one of the rules is no processed foods and reduce your carbs, reduce your carbohydrate intake. But I've been saying that already. So what if the fad diet is absolutely fake? There's nothing about it, but the fact that you reduced processed foods and you reduced carbohydrates is what's causing all the benefits. And of course, there's the other one, which is the placebo effect. So always have to be aware of that. I may take this slide out because a very low calorie diet is it's not really a big thing anymore. In fact, never mind. I'm deleting the slide right now. Bye. Yeah, so if you want to know more about it, email me, but it's not popular enough to justify putting it in a introduction to health course. So, in general, let's talk about behavior change. If there is a behavior, it's not just eating, but if there's a behavior that you don't like about yourself, one of the first steps in behavioral change is mindfulness. Is before you participate in that behavior, what it is, just ask yourself, why am I doing this? Do I have to do this? Or was I trained? Did somebody train me to do this? Ask yourself, am I a puppet? Am I Pavlov's dog? Or am I an intelligent human being in control of my own fate, in control of my own body? Then cut those puppet strings, rewire that trigger switch, and the first step is to ask yourself why. If you're used to going to the vending machine at every break, then the next break ask yourself, do I have to go to the vending machine? Why am I going to the vending machine? Who taught me to do this? Where did I learn this habit? And see if there's a way to modify. For example, I bring almonds, low sodium almonds, cheese and crackers from home. So I don't go to the vending machine. And the prices on those vending machines anyway, right? So it's cheaper, healthier to bring snacks from home. Just go to the grocery store, buy a family pack of crackers, buy a week's worth of cheese, and a bag of almonds or your other favorite nuts, and put them in little bags. Just dump them in a small bag for the day and carry that around. And not only do you save a lot of money, but you also can eat more than you would have eaten if you could only buy it from the vending machine or a convenience store. The next step after mindful eating is eat this, not that, which is look for substitutes. So previous slide I said I'm substituting a vending machine snack for something I brought from home. It's healthier, it's cheaper. And now take the next step, which is after you find out the things you've been eating, take an honest look at the things you're eating, and then a little at a time find substitutes for it. Eat 0.8 grams protein per kilogram body weight. Athletes, a gram per body. Yeah, okay. We don't eat enough vegetables as a society, so I am comfortable in saying eat as much as you can. Eat as much fresh vegetables as you can. The pre-packaged vegetables do not count because those are loaded with salt and sugar. But the fresh produce vegetables in the grocery store, buy as much as you can, eat as much as you can. Hopefully that'll fill you up and then make you less tempted to reach for the vending machine. Reduce carbs as much as realistic, not as much as possible, but realistic. Zero carbs, not a good idea because it can cause medical effects. So that keto diet, I don't like it. I see that the keto diet has some short-term benefits, but I'm worried about those people for their long-term health. And try to get around 30 grams of fiber per day. Okay. So make a diet plan, and part of it is calculating your resting metabolic rate. Then honestly count up the calories you eat per day. And how do you make sure that your daily food intake journal is accurate? You cannot show it to anybody. Do not show it to anybody. If you do, then now you have a psychological temptation to start fudging the numbers, to start lying to yourself. But if you know that this list will never be seen by anybody else, now you are free to be honest. And you count up all the calories of the day, and then any excess calories beyond your resting metabolic rate is what you need to exercise off. And that's how you maintain your weight. If you want to lose weight, you want to exercise more than the difference. That's sounding mathy, and here's a spreadsheet of how I'm doing it, or how I did it. This is a year old already. And to help you guys try it for yourselves, what I did was I made an extra credit assignment of actually going through this for yourself. So stay tuned. I'm going to record that next after I come back from the gym, and I will post it sometime by the weekend. For those who are really serious about weight loss, you want to watch out, because there is anorexia and bulimia, which is the next slide. You've heard of these two already, right? They're both a psychological issue. They're both a mental health illness. It's not only about the dieting. The excessive dieting or the extreme dieting are symptoms of a mental health issue. They are suffering what's called body dysmorphia, which is they look in the mirror and they see what's not in the mirror. Their minds make them see something else than what is actually in the mirror, and so they start to harm themselves in various serious ways. I'll talk a little bit more about these in the physical fitness lecture next week, and the addiction lecture next month. But anyway, anybody who has behaviors of anorexia, bulimia, they need to see a psychiatrist, not just a dietitian, they need to see a psychiatrist. They may need to see an emergency room physician if they've really harmed their bodies by a lot. When talking about food, safe handling is important, and I'll just say, as an oversimplification, throw away leftovers after the third day. Of course, different foods spoil at a different rate. And if you are that knowledgeable, then go ahead, follow your own advice. But don't keep leftovers forever. The problem with refrigerators is they do not stop spoilage, they only slow it down. So food that would have spoiled and become dangerous to eat after like 2 hours in the sun on a warm day would still become dangerous to eat like several days in the refrigerator. The refrigerator does not stop spoiling, it only slows it down. So the question now to you is, do you want to risk a trip to the emergency room just because you're trying to save a few dollars? I don't think it's worth it. When in doubt, throw it out. You can try the smell test, but I don't know about your nose, but my nose is not that accurate. So after a couple days, if I still haven't eaten the leftover from the picnic or the restaurant, I'll just throw it out. Cook meats, of course, adequately cooked meats, especially pork and chicken, but you already knew that, right? Okay, so I recap with the slide I showed at the beginning of the lecture, it's been a long lecture. It's like over 2 hours. That's why I pre-record it, so I'm not rushed and I talk as much as I want about the topics I want. Anyway, thank you for your patience. You have now heard enough from me to attempt the homework and the quiz, so I wish you good luck with that, and you will hear from me next week.